So I wrote an article on Medium this past week entitled "What I Would Do If I Were Ed Bastian." And if you don't know who Ed Bastian is, he's not a celebrity. You're not missing anything out here. Ed Bastian is the CEO of Delta Airlines. So I'm a fairly unabashed Delta Airlines loyalist. I try to exclusively travel in the air with Delta. I'm a frequent flyer. I love Delta. So when I was trying to think about how companies should be looking at their content production and output during coronavirus, one of the hardest hit industries, obviously, is the airline industry. It made a lot of sense for me to think about it from the perspective of Delta Airlines. So I'm not going to rehash the article for you, but um, the principle is this. My recommendation, after kind of deep diving on what Delta is stuck with, obviously where the travel industry is as a whole, people are not sure when it's going to be safe to get back on an airplane. When they do, obviously there's going to be new rules in place. So my concept was this. They need to focus on a pillar content strategy. If you listen to the podcast for a while, you've heard us love on Gary Vaynerchuk a lot, and that pillar content strategy comes from Gary. He talks about how a single keystone piece of content, in some cases, this podcast is our pillar content for our company. For another company, it might be a live show. In the case of Delta here, what I was recommending was that they do a series of short form, not 30-second, but not 30-minute features either. So 3 to 7 minute videos with CEO of the airline, Ed Bastian, kind of tackling every question and part of the coronavirus issue and breaking it down for people. So that might mean how the aircraft cabin gets cleaned. That might mean what the new cleanliness procedures are for check-in. That might mean what kind of mask needs to be worn by passengers on board, how your baggage is getting handled, when they last cleaned the Sky Club, is it safe to eat and drink from the Sky Club? All these things that air passengers, and particularly the very lucrative passengers for the airline, which are business travelers, what they're going to want to know and what they're going to be expecting. So Delta, and some airlines do this, some don't, but Delta puts CEO Ed Bastian in the front of almost all of their safety videos fleet-wide. When you step on a Delta aircraft, he thanks you for flying Delta, your loyalty, blah, 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 welcomes you on board the plane. So the concept is, if you're a Delta traveler frequently, you've seen this guy's face repeatedly, he needs to be the trusted person that is telling you that it's safe to fly when it is safe to fly. And then, of course, giving you the details on what Delta has done to make it safe for you. And then that content, let's say it's 5 to 10, 3 to 7 minute videos that they've created as this pillar, can be broken down to a ton of different short form pieces, from quote graphics to 20-second clips of the video, stills from the video, Facebook stories, Snapchat stories, TikToks, you name it. And that concept comes again from Gary's concept. So I'll give them a free plug. Gary and his company Vayner Media, one of the largest digital media agencies in the world, put out an ebook. An ebook makes it sound almost kind of cheap at this point, like free ebook, but it's not. It's a guide. It's a 270
It's
page
long,
guide.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a slide deck basically that they put out of how to put out 64 pieces of content in a day, and basically how to do it without ripping your hair out along the way. So that's free on Gary's website. You can find the link to it in my article. You can find it pretty easily by Googling. There's not even a sign up form. It is free to download and use for you or your organization if you have a content challenge, or if you're someone that's kind of overwhelmed by the need to produce all this content for the current, media consumption society that we live in. I would recommend checking out this guide, because it makes it seem a lot more manageable than just hearing, hey, you should put out 64 pieces or even 100 pieces of content in a day.
Yeah, and I think going back to the idea of having Ed Bastian as like the spokesperson for these videos and the spokesperson for this content, I think it's something that people need to see right now. They need to, even if you're not familiar with who he is,
Yep.
You recognize that here's the CEO of Delta talking about all the safety measures they're taking. He's on the ground, he's involved, he's being a
He's
leader.
willing to get on a plane and
Mhm.
fly somewhere on their aircraft, right?
Right.
Knowing that he's going to interact with his children or significant other or whomever.
It's helpful to see people being leaders when
Yep.
they're needed. So I think
And it
that
wasn't a critique of them either,
yeah.
right? I don't think they're doing anything wrong. They have a pretty detailed like COVID-19 response page on their website. They've been very transparent from the beginning about, even before this happened, the cleaners that they use on aircraft were already rated to kill viruses like coronaviruses, but they've stepped up the frequency of those cleaners. So I mean, this is not by any means a crack at Delta.
Mhm.
It's how do you take all those things you've been doing and make them clear to the people that you need to eventually convince to get their butts back in the seats on planes.
Right, and adding a form of reassurance, I think, too.